Thank you, everyone, for coming. Appreciate it. Excited about our guests. We'll talk about them here in a minute. I first want to just give a couple of shout-outs to some of our sponsors. Mary, who always brings us wine. Give it up for Mary. She's hiding somewhere. She's probably drinking a glass right now. I want to thank Workability. Anyone here from Workability? Yes, this wonderful facility. They host us every month. They're amazing. They don't charge us to do this. So listen, if anyone's looking for co-working space, definitely talk to these guys. Ian's Pizza for that wonderful pizza. Ratio Beer Works for the beer. Give it up for Fluent Hustle for filming us tonight. And something we've never done before. We'll see how it comes out. But we're doing Facebook Live. So you guys are all going to be famous after this. Hope everyone should have signed a waiver. No, I'm just kidding. I also want to shout out to our volunteers. Volunteers, please stand up. If you're in the room, if you're around, wave. These guys are awesome. Thank you. I want to call Brian. Brian, come up here for a second. Come on, Brian. Yeah, you. Yeah, so real quickly, I just want to say a couple of words about Startup Grind. And Brian's one of our longer volunteers in the organization. And Brian's going to read off my shirt because I love these values and I don't talk enough about them. But this is who we are. We have 600 chapters literally around the world. In 2.5 weeks, or 2 weeks from Monday, we have our global conference in Silicon Valley, which Brian was at last year. Who's going to that this year? Come on. Let's hear a little shout. Come on.
Good for you.
All right, he's got pizza in his mouth. It's okay. But anyways, what are our values, Brian?
Give first, help others, and make friends.
Yeah.
Business is friendships.
Yeah. This is really what we believe in. This is the core of our organization. Give it up to Google for backing us globally. And one last thing, I'd be remiss without thanking my co-director who just walked in. Give it up for Sabina, who does most of the work. Okay, a couple of quick announcements. In March, let's see if this actually shows the date. Sabina, what's the date? March 4th, we're having our winter party. FormStack is actually our sponsor this year, our title sponsor. We've got a couple of others that have signed on. We're looking for more sponsors. It's going to be at the FormStack offices downtown. It's going to be amazing. There are sponsorship papers out and about if you're interested. If you're not interested, we still love for you to come and party with us. Bo, stand up for a minute. Bo is with FormStack, and Bo's company, which I'm now a part of, is sponsoring. So thank you, Bo. All right, without any further ado, very excited to welcome our guests tonight. Lupe and Barbara, please come on up. Give it up. All right, so we're going to kind of start a little bit about what's happening now, and then we're going to take a dive way back. Talk about how we got to where we are, and then we'll talk about a little bit more of everything you guys are doing today.
You got it.
So I'm going to start with you, Lupe.
Okay.
Baby Mike.
What are you guys doing? What's happening? What's this business you guys are doing?
Wow, where to start? SecondAct Women was founded to really take on the current cultural idea, stereotype, bias, whatever you want to call it, that women over 40 and 50 are past their prime. There's this ageist thinking out there that you hit a certain age and you're no longer valuable. You're no longer contributing. And so we founded this organization to say, hey, hold up a second. We're 40, 50, 60. We're alive and kicking, doing amazing things. Watch us kind of stand up and rise and show really who we are.
Love that. Barbara, what would you say?
Well, I would say, too, to add on to that not only are we re-scripting ageism in corporate America, small business ownership, and even, as we say, everywhere in between, but there's a problem out there with corporate America hiring managers and ERG groups, you name it, that somehow, as Lupe said, are foregoing or passing up on our resumes, are passing us up on promotions. When we want to pivot careers, we're not getting hired. even if we want to go back in or stay in the same industry, we're not getting promoted. So there's a big issue with the fact that you're sitting at a certain number in age that says you're over to everyone else, to society, culture, sometimes within ourselves, and that is far from the case. I'm a proud 53-year-old woman. I started this company at 51, and after experiencing ageism, however, at the time, I didn't realize it was ageism at the time. I just thought, oh, okay, well, I guess I am overqualified or underqualified or not the culture fit, finger quotes, that was coming back in emails. And later I discovered, while working on what this thing was going to be, I discovered actually it was my number. At the time, it was 51. I was sitting at 51 and I didn't realize that when you put on your resume, when you graduated from college, when you had certain jobs in your life, that's what was pushing my resume aside. And we have information about that we'll share later.
Yeah,
because actually in Colorado, that's illegal.
We'll get
for
there.
anybody to ask
We'll get
about
there
that.
for sure. Funny side note. I started. We started up Grind to Workability. I think right about a year ago. Brian, is that about right? No, probably about. Was it June? Okay, 7 months ago. It feels like a year sometimes. No, I'm just kidding. And it's kind of funny story. The first day that I started sort of officing out of here, the very first person I met was actually Barbara. And it's funny.
And my dog.
This is true. I did meet her dog, and my 5-year-old adores her dog.
I love your 5-year-old.
But just a kind of a side note, kind of an interesting thing that I think about when I think about the business you're doing and sort of this we'll call it a thought process that if you're X age, then you're lacking what? What is it that you can't do? What is it? What would be the reason that a company wouldn't want you? And I will tell you that I know a lot of people, as most of you know. I can't tell you too many people, besides probably my mother-in-law, that equal the type of energy that Barbara has. So, and then the funny thing is,
don't make me cry because I do have good lashes on
oh,
tonight.
they'll be crying tonight. And then the funny thing is, she introduces me to Lupe, and I'm like, I know your name, I know your last name, and it turns out I did business with her husband like freaking 15 years ago. I hadn't seen him in like probably 12, 15 years. Anyways, that aside, let's get into the stories here a little bit. So today, I mean, the two of you are entrepreneurs, you're partners, you're building this business out. When did you? We'll start with you, Barbara, on this one. I mean, when did you realize that did it take being sort of discriminated against, if you will, to decide you wanted to do your own thing, or was there something else? Let's look all the way back. I mean, was there something else, whether it be college, high school, whatever, where you're like, hey, I want to one day do my own thing. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a business owner, what have you.
Well, interesting enough, now I look back, at my high school years, and I was a part of DECA. How many know what DECA is? Distributive Educational Clubs of America, basically marketing club. And so I remember Mr. Johnson, Don Johnson, I think he knew one day that I was going to somehow educate and or lead people in a way that has become now my purpose, but that I probably would own my own company, maybe even doing what he had the foresight.
Sure.
Somehow, as teachers do. But I didn't think. I was a corporate girl. I was director of marketing and business development for shopping centers all across the United States, working for some of the largest companies in the world, Simon Property Group, and others. They own Forum Shops at Caesar's Palace and opened Mall of America and all of that sort of thing. Actually, here they own Colorado Mills as one of their outlet projects. And then I worked for Park Meadows Retail Resort, which was at the time owned by General Growth out of Chicago. And in 2011, by the way, I did dip into radio and TV sales. I was telling that to our South African friend there. But yeah. Welcome, everybody. No modesty. In 2011, I became an accidental entrepreneur. How many of you became really an accidental entrepreneur? Just curious, where you had to do something to pay the bills, and in a sense, you then sort of liked what being an entrepreneur. And that was me. Although it was hard at the time because you're used to having your own administrative assistants and people doing accounting.
Right.
Suddenly now you're wearing all the hats. So it was quite a learning lesson. But, I've now owned 3 companies. And how this came about was because, as I said earlier, really I was trying to go back to corporate.
You're getting way too far ahead.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
That's the deal.
Hold it right there.
Yes, I was a corporate, and now I'm a corporate leftover, and I would never go back to corporate America.
So let me ask you a question, and I'm going to Lupe here in a second. Looking back, when you sit down and you think about what you're doing today and the realization you hit that led you to what you're doing today,
Yeah.
do you look back and do you feel like you saw people that were your age now that were getting kind of left aside or not brought in? Did that take part in any of your thinking?
It didn't until I started working on, when I wasn't getting hired.
Yes.
I decided to create, at the time, what was going to be Women's Business Week. I, as a marketer, started doing strategy work and brainstorming with people, and it just so happens most of the people I was interviewing with were within my target demo, my age, and I started hearing the same thing over and over, and suddenly it started resonating with me that, wait a minute, if I want to be different, first of all, as a marketer, and create something different for women that they're really going to enjoy and the value is there, what is that? And then I started figuring out it's serving this population of women that are stuck. They don't know what to do, yet they have the most amazing experience. They are ready to continue. They're continuing their growth. They're so excited to continue their personal growth and professional development, but they're finding it hard to earn a living. And so I saw that and I thought, oh my gosh, that's my problem. And here's the solution, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later with Second Act Women. And that was it. And after that, it became my passion project. And I'm living, eating, and sleeping it. This is literally my second home. Thank God they have a place they can wash my dog.
they really do. She's not kidding. There'll be a tour after if anyone wants to see the dog washing station. Unfortunately for me, they have a punching bag in the room next to that. Lupe, talk to me about, talk to the audience about, kind of the same question to you in terms of, the realization that you wanted to do your own thing.
So for me, I'm originally from California, and so there you go, in the house, awesome. And so I studied public relations, and so I joined an agency. That's the reason why I moved out to Colorado, is to join an agency out here. And soon after, like 4 months, they closed shop. And at the time, I moved here with a 2-year-old baby, and I was one of those parents who I'm like, I refuse to take my kid to daycare. I need to just start doing my own thing. And so I did it for the reason of wanting to not have to shuttle my kid to daycare. And so I started my own PR agency, which has now been in existence for, 25 years.
Nice.
That's nuts.
That's awesome.
Yes. It's my side hustle now. But similarly like Barbara, I've started 4 companies, including this one now in total. So from video production to our joint Decibel marketing and PR to my current PR company that I've had for this 20 some odd years, and then now Second Act Women. So for me, I've really kind of just been on the agency side for just a handful of years out of college, but I've pretty much been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I can't even imagine going back to corporate, even though I tried to last year. And it didn't work out for me. So hence why I'm doing another, gig.
So talk about for a minute before we jump into what you guys are doing today. I'd like to hear from both of you on this. Being a woman in business, having your own thing from when you first started doing this several years back or a number of years back, what that was like. Is it different today? What are some of those challenges? I mean, blessed with a number of women entrepreneurs in the room tonight. I'd love to talk about that.
So when I came here to Denver it's been like 19 years now, there definitely wasn't the community that there is today. It was, I think, in the works, but I found myself definitely kind of doing my own thing, still networking, but I was very fortunate to fall into a group that kind of took me under their wing and freelanced a lot. I freelanced a lot for. Today, it's like night and day. I mean, my gosh, how many resources out there designed specifically to support the entrepreneurial community. And I think in tandem with that, organizations like ours and other amazing women, entrepreneur-led organizations are really kind of stepping up to collaboratively support entrepreneurs, but female entrepreneurs specifically as well too. And so I think that's the beautiful kind of location that we're in, that I don't think we could be in a better city, to be honest, to jumpstart, entrepreneurial efforts, but also even women-led efforts. I think, what was it? Last year, I think Denver was rated the #1 city for female entrepreneurs. So we're in the right place, ladies, let me just say. So that's fantastic. So, yeah.
For me, it seems like corporate America, at the time, again, we're talking the 80s and 90s, and the early aughts, was about competing with one another, whether we admitted it or not, because there was, one spot at the table, so to speak, for that one female. And so there was that indirect/direct competition. And it's almost as if, because there's so many of us that are now doing our own thing, that we instead have flipped the table, and we, as she said, are hungry to support each other. I mean, it's really beautiful how us Gen Xers and Boomers are really, you can't turn around without, and ask for help without, having 3 or 4 women at your beck and call, wanting to help, wanting to say, how can I? It's literally about helping us. I know it's cliche, but it is, the hashtag women supporting women. There's a reason why that's so strong, because it is happening by the droves, and it's beautiful.
It's great to hear.
There's no more, fighting each other and competing. And a lot of these women are in the same industry. A lot of them are coaches in certain, a business coach, lifestyle coach, wellness coach, and there's, quite a few coaches, but they all have their niche, and they're all still helping each other. We discovered that this week when we were talking to people, who are working together, who met during some of our events from across the country. There are women that are now working together, and they're in the same industry, that
That's
are,
great.
working and making better connections and bigger and better events and workshops and all that kind of thing.
So what about the two of you guys? How did this relationship, how did this marriage come together?
Well, she is my work wife. We do. She goes home to a hubby and 2 kids. I go home to a 4-pound dog. And I am looking for my man.
A plug out there.
Sorry, LinkedIn. By the way, you guys are on LinkedIn Live. This is our first time streaming live on LinkedIn.
Is this LinkedIn Live
Yes,
or Facebook
we have LinkedIn
Live?
Live right there. Surprise!
Oh, wow. Okay.
There will be no cursing.
Just a little bit. Okay.
So how it came about is when I was Director of Marketing and Business Development for Park Meadows Retail Resort, never call it a mall, you Coloradans. I got in trouble the first week for calling it a mall. So at any rate, it came about because we had a mutual friend. I was doing business with a woman who actually had, who was in the hospitality industry, and she was doing business with Vail Cascade Resorts. That was one of her properties. So we were doing a Christmas promotion, as we do in the mall industry, and Lupe was her publicist. So all of a sudden, we're meeting, we're doing events and projects together, and we're starting to find a friendship. Now, when I became an entrepreneur in 2011 with Brooks Marketing Group, I was really creative, wasn't I, with that? My last name is Brooks. That was so creative. That was that panic.
I was
What do I call
trying
it?
to figure out how you came up with that.
It was really hard. So anyway, so she and I remembered her talents, and I needed somebody to handle some of the PR side of things. She needed, in a sense, some marketing, and so we started working together, freelancing and contracting.
How long ago was this?
This was 2011, sorry. 2011, but 2010 is when we met.
Okay.
We've had now, this is our in a sense, third company together. We did consciously uncouple when we both tried to go back to corporate in 2018. I roped her back in once I discovered SecondAct Women was my thing. But yeah, and it is like, I mean, again, this will get me teary-eyed, but it is like a true sisterhood. I don't have a sister, thanks, Mom. But I do have an awesome brother. And she does have a sister and brother, but she is my sister. She understands me, and there's no judgment on either side, and we have disagreements, as most people, that's how you know you have a real partnership or friendship. And that's how it came. And I can keep going on and on because I love this woman.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel.
I know, let me just make sure they're still there. Okay.
Everything's
That's
intact.
not the funny part. So the funny part was that we actually had been talking for a while. We had been doing these projects. And then I just, after being an entrepreneur for so long, I got tired of being by myself. And I was finding that I was working more and more with her on certain projects. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, hey, let's go to lunch. She's like, okay, let's go to lunch. And I sat there and I looked at her like, first date type of deal. And I was like, hey, girl, so I was thinking.
Who paid?
I was thinking, so like, do you want to work together? Do you like want to start a company together? Because I'm tired of working by myself. And she's like, what? Like all gushy. And I'm like, this is like, what? I'm asking you out, like, for like on a working relationship here. Work with me, woman. And so she was like, of course. And so then that started everything. And it's been 10 plus years after that. So
That's amazing.
crazy. Time flies.
Well, and when you work in corporate America or in a company with lots of people and you're a social person like me, it didn't take me but 2 seconds to say, yes, let's do it.
That's awesome. So let's jump into the company a little bit. I wanted to say a few things, being someone who's been in the human capital, talent acquisition business for a number of years. What's been interesting to me is the last, I'd say 5-6 years in particular, a real push for bringing, especially here locally, bringing women into leadership positions, bringing women into tech. I've seen bringing women into oil and gas, geology positions, science roles. I mean, we're seeing a nice movement there, and there's a movement today, hiring more minorities. A lot of push for those things, veterans. But it's funny. I'll be frank with you. And I've represented a lot of companies. There's really no talk of what about those over the age of 50 or. In fact, if anything, I was in a training, I won't say who did it, and they talked about, and this was very ironic to me, going back to what I said about when we first met, they were talking about certain language not to use. There was an HR person leading this, and certain terms not to use if you tell somebody what the company is looking for, or if you tell someone why they're not interested. And one of the things they said is to never use the term high energy because it's an ageist term. And I felt like at the time that if anything, it was almost the opposite of saying that, because you're making like an assumption that if you're older than a certain age, that you couldn't possibly have high energy. Right. And my joke at the time, this was before Barbara and I met, my mother-in-law, who's in her 70s, she lives in New York, and my wife and I visit frequently, and I have 4 sons, for those of you who don't know, and she wears every one of us down. I mean, she wants to show us New York City in a day every time we come. And you could see New York City in a day 1,000 times and only see part of it. And I swear by like 4 o'clock, I'm like, please let me sit in a Starbucks, So, but it's funny because I feel like the way, and I obviously want your guys' opinion on this, the way it's being addressed, if addressed at all, is by saying, let's not offend the people that are older X age. But there's no movement, let's bring them in. And we're sitting here in Denver, Colorado today, and this is worth a cheer for, because this is very exciting for someone that's lived here most of my life. We're at 2.5% unemployment in Metro Denver today. 2.5%. Yet, shouldn't there be a push to say, well, who else could do this job? And who could we bring in for training? Right. We're seeing the push has begun to bring in non-college graduates. We're seeing a push of bringing people, straight out of the military, whatever. But I haven't seen this yet. So let's talk about what you guys are doing.
That's another reason why this company is really a first of its kind in the United States that we can determine, at least as of when we started in 2018, because we recognized that there was a major issue. And as double minorities, for me, a triple minority, because I'm like 6'2" right now, or 3, it is really tough out there. And we found that when it comes to D&I, diversity inclusion, ageism is not necessarily included in that in most companies. And we will talk about a few that that are on the cusp or are doing things about it that we've had conversations with. But it's really interesting that, yes, ageism, it's about LGBTQ, which is beautiful. It's about racism, creed, all of that, which again is beautiful. We're not ageist when it comes to what we're trying to talk about, by the way.
Right.
But the world says we are. Again, it has something to do with the number. And a lot of times they think that women and men, that we don't have the tech, we don't have the experience needed to, we don't know social media, we don't know how to use Google Drive and and Microsoft and G Suite and CRM systems like HubSpot and Canva, and we do. That's the problem is, we do. We know all of that. And we want to learn, we have a thirst and an appetite to continue to learn and build on those things. And so it's crushing when you hear that people don't understand that think about it. Gen X started with tech. You guys remember that, right? I remember taking RPG and Fortran, yeah, me, who else remembers that, right? In a class, in a zoo, in a class, in a big old, CPU unit, in a cold, air-conditioned unit. And I remember that it was about that we started with Apple and Microsoft and Elon Musk. I mean, come on, really? We're the ones that are starting everything, yet Gen X, 1965 to 1981, Gen X are the ones that are lost. Yet, by the way, we are the ones that are responsible, women and men, for the economy. 31% we're responsible for. 1,821 businesses a day in America are started by women. We're powerful. So this is why we're trying to build this movement, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little later on. But yeah, it's a shame, but we are here to turn the tide.
And I think also to follow up on that, I think one of the source problems too is that we acknowledge that Gen X is employed. I mean, we account for currently about 44% of Gen Xers are employed, but they're like in middle to perhaps maybe senior level management. The challenge is that we're just not being hired. Like, that's the problem. There's not, like to your point, Doug, there's not a concerted effort to bring on new Gen Xers. There's no strategy in D&I, as Barb was saying. It's not part of their onboarding process. So what's happening is that, we're in these positions, and so sometimes we are either, not happy where we're at and we want to make the move, but we're also scared to leave sometimes because we run the risk of like, well, am I going to get hired somewhere else?
Right.
So we stay. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're not. But then the other challenge is that then, you get communication issues in offices that oftentimes result in us either walking away or being dismissed. This is the first time, I think, in history where we have probably about 6 or 7 generations you can find working in the same workplace. So talk about different communication styles from one generation to the next that poses, team challenges. We're oftentimes hearing people complaining, or not complaining, but voicing concerns about how can I connect with my millennial counterparts, or how can I, communicate with my boomers? And there's all these disconnects, which creates for sometimes uncomfortable workplaces. So our goal is to say, hey, let's raise awareness about the value that all of our generations bring. Millennials, no, not Gen Z quite yet, but like boomers and Gen Xers, like we all bring different and distinct values to the table. But I think what's happening right now is that companies are just not acknowledging or don't have the understanding of how to maximize the potential of bringing the communication together for all these generations and tapping into everybody's power. Because imagine, I think it's been proven, I think you can actually improve productivity by some crazy number. I think it was 30 or 40% a study showed, if you are able to foster productive intergenerational communications and everybody feels like they're contributing. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want. But we're not, companies are not structured right now to be able to support those types of conversations.
Sure. So we see the problem, right? We see the issue that this demographic, if you will, are not receiving the opportunities. They don't see the opportunities. They know that there's a risk if they leave where they currently are, that they're not going to get hired somewhere else. And probably also that there isn't, like you said, specifically, there's not a concerted effort. It's not looked upon as an issue as it truly is. So talk about this company, talk about SecondAct Women. How is this addressing this issue?
So the solution for us right now, and it's multifaceted. So you would be here a long time when you hear about our plan. But
There's more Red Bull in my trunk.
right? And red wine and white wine, thanks to Mary. No, so the solution that we're providing is providing a hub of resources, workshops, professional development, higher level professional development tools, resources, downloadables, worksheets, templates, business plan activation and learning how to create your business plan, rewriting your resume to land that position, having panels like we're having next Tuesday with recruiters, Barbara Hirt being one of them, and a woman from web services from Amazon, helping women overall. We have 3 market segments. So we have the corporate woman who is pivoting careers or trying to stay in their career and, get the promotion, or they're happy where they're at and they're just, biting their nails trying to keep their job. And then there's the women who want to go back to working in a business, who are returning back to work because their kids are now gone, or there's divorce. There's a lot of other things that goes on with that woman who's trying to go back or working in corporate or for a company. Then you've got the entrepreneurship who's starting up or owns a business, and then there's the women who, amongst our entire sisterhood, just want to connect.
Right.
They just want this sisterhood to talk about mental health, to talk about caregiving, to talk about business and help each other. So we are providing a hub in these 3 different areas to, again, help them stay relevant and learn, take some of their skill sets that they have now to the next level. We met with General Assembly, for instance, and it's run by a badass woman who's a regional, and that's a global company. They're going to teach digital marketing, startup level, and then also, depending on the level of skills that our women have, we're just doing a lot. And so we have this hub, webinars. I mean, I can go on and on. Now, there is a strategy. So I'm, weaving across, a lot of what we're doing. But on our new website that we're launching next week, but our Insiders Club that did launch this week, the women that are part of that group, like Andrea and some others, there's some really great resources out there. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to do internal advocacy first, and that's with those 3 segments, but then a whole nother issue that we're working with are D&I. And so we've had conversations with Johnson & Johnson, and we've had other conversations. Macy's, for instance, we just learned have an accelerator program for small business for women. And I will link you. We're going to do something and have you guys link with us on LinkedIn. I have a little secret for us to do it quicker. Plus, I'm out of business cards. But, we'll share that information. And so we're doing what we can in these different areas to do what we can to help us. And we're learning along the way.
Yeah. In addition to also those resources, too, what we're finding is that by creating this hub, we're like 1,700 now strong on Facebook. These women are now working together. So we're bringing together a network of women over 40 and 50 who are business owners, corporate women, entrepreneurs, et cetera. But these women are now hiring other women within our community. So we're finding that these women would have not otherwise connected. And so we're creating a network to allow, us to kind of employ ourselves, employ other women who have the talents but maybe aren't given the opportunities, or to support them as they're starting their job or their new company. And so I think that's the beautiful part about we're giving them the resources to individually thrive, but we're also creating the community to help elevate all of us collectively.
And when you look at the women that today, as you sit here, that are part of what you're doing, that are coming out and meeting with you guys, that are talking to you guys, that are engaging with you, is there a segment that you see a greater amount of, whether it be a woman that maybe took some time away from work that wants to return, or the woman that's working for a big company that's scared to leave? Is there a certain segment that seems to be more of, or is it sort of divided up?
You know, I think definitely we have a large representation of entrepreneurs in our network. Women who, you know, whether they're wanting to embark on a side hustle while they have their current job, or want to just fully step in with 2 feet into the startup world. But we have a good mix. Like, I would say that's what, like 60s or so %. And then it's a divided, you know, combination amongst the corporate women who are, whether they're looking to just connect, but then are also looking to elevate their skills, maybe pivot laterally within the corporate realm, and are wanting to get, you know, new tips or ideas on how to do that within their corporation. And then, you know, women who, like Barb was saying earlier, want to just connect and,
Sure.
and be part of a bigger community to support them on both their life and professional journey.
And we also, interesting enough, we also have a couple of HR people. Now, Brian is a male, but he's an advocate for us. And we do have other HR people that have joined our Facebook group that, again, is growing, oh my gosh, by hundreds a week, nationally and now globally, which is really exciting. But we have these men and women that are now starting to figure out, you know, that if they see something, do something. So if they, you know, they're starting to take note, the
Sure.
people that are a part of that. And so that's what is probably what is going to help and will help move the needle, is by having hiring managers and the 71% of white men who are owners, you know, or lead companies, to start figuring out that we're worth every darn penny.
So
And then some.
So let's talk about that for a minute. You know, there are men here. There are women that you know, aren't in the demographic we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, what can you tell people to be an advocate? You know, I understand to see something, do something, but you know, I mean, what are the things that you know, whether someone's a hiring manager, whether someone's a staff level person, whether someone's in their first job, I mean, what are the things that they can do to sort of spread this message that, hey, this is a demographic we need to look at, this is a demographic we need to consider?
I think some of it is, and then I'm going to let her answer it as well. But I would think it first starts with the teams themselves. So we, again, aren't ageist ourselves, and so we really highly recommend that hiring people that are you know, at the helm of hiring realize what she said, that when you have an intergenerational team that are patient with one another, that are sharing wisdom, that are sharing technology, that are sharing soft skills from our side, which aren't necessarily strong on the millennial side or Gen Z. You know, there's this beautiful web of sharing of information that can happen that increases the bottom line. So first, hiring managers in corporate America and VCs and people that, you know, when we need money for our companies, they've got to realize that ultimately we help the bottom line. We are the ones, by the way, that are purchasing more than anybody. The
Right.
women over 40 and 50. Our purchasing power is $15 trillion dollars strong. And so it starts with being patient with one another and sharing amongst each other and sort of cross-pollinating. And there's a lot more to that.
You know, I think everybody has the potential to be an advocate. Ageism is the one ism that we will all experience. No matter if you're young now, if you're black, brown, you know, purple, whatever, like, it is the one ism that we will all experience at some point in time. And if you yourself are not experiencing it, perhaps your parents are, or your grandparents, or you know someone, right? So it behooves us to have an open mind to being an advocate, you know, and that can take everything from, you know, if you see someone making an ageist comment, say something. Like, stand up for you know, what you're seeing. It's our responsibility to correct those conversations now, so that, you know, when you're older, or when your sons or daughters are older, they themselves don't have to deal with that. So it comes down to just be willing to communicate, be willing to call out people, be willing to learn from comments that maybe you get from other people saying, hey, you know what, that just wasn't a cool comment, and here's why. And be willing to just change and evolve your thought about what it means to age. We are living and thriving a lot longer. We're living to like 80-something plus now. So the whole idea of retiring at 55 or 65 or, being considered old is like, it has to change. Like, we are not, past generations that, decided, hey, yeah, I'm gonna move to Florida and retire at 65 or whatever. Like, we're like, hey, bring on the next chapter of what we wanna do. So don't discount what, people can do, because there's a lot of intellectual capital that as we age is the only way that you're gonna acquire it. So value it, but also understand that millennials, Gen Zs, they bring the same level of value. So have that willingness to have that bi-directional conversation to learn, grow, and create a new future for all of us.
And let me ask the question in a different way. So for the folks that do fit the demographic, right, that maybe aren't having this issue because they have their own business, right? They're entrepreneurs, they've always run their own thing. What can they do? What can they do? I mean, if we think about these myths, right? Again, I go back to it again, but the energy one, hey, they're not going to know how to use technology. I mean, is there? It's kind of a conflicting thing. I mean, there's one that you say, no, I do know how to do this, but I guess in a way, it's a biased comment that you don't want to have to prove. So I mean, what would you say? I mean, how do you sort of juggle that? If you want to make the point to say, listen, we should still be heard. We should be considered for a position or what have you. So if someone's in that coaching position or has their own company or what have you, I mean, what are the things that they can say and do where it's not kind of conflicting, where they shouldn't have to? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let me put it this way. If there's an assumption that at 58 years old you don't have much energy, you shouldn't have to get out there and run around the room 20 times to say, no, look, I have energy.
Right.
Yet there's still something to be said that there is this assumption. So how do you fight that? What is the way to handle those objections, those biases, whatever term we want to use?
For me, I guess it's just simple. I think it's just, first, erase the word old from your vocabulary. Never use it. Please. My 83-year-old mother isn't even old, in my opinion, and she's like your mom. I would say it's simple. Just continue who you are and be optimistic. Don't be pessimistic in that. I don't know how to quite answer that.
I hear you. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah.
So I think you're actually on the right track. I think it starts with us. First and foremost, like, you got to be proud of the person who's looking back at you in the mirror. So I think once you can step into and own your age, not all of us do.
And we mean really own it, y'all.
Yes.
For real.
So I think once you can own your age, I think you get the confidence to then step into awkward conversations that you otherwise probably would have strayed away from. So it all comes down back to communication, to be honest. I mean, it's the opportunity to be able to articulate to someone, hey, no, I want this job because X, Y, Z. I can bring this value. So it's a matter of understanding how to repurpose your skills, pivot, be able to accentuate what you bring to the table in ways that, maybe defy the current standards or the current biases that exist of, you're not high energy, you don't know technology. Well, actually, no, I know how to do X, Y, Z, 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 and then some, right? So it's about being able to effectively articulate the skills that we do bring to the table to counter the biases that currently exist. And that falls on all of us to do that, whether it's, in our day-to-day communication with our friends, colleagues, or whoever we're coming across, but most definitely in the corporate workplace, because that's what's going to break down those conversations one person at a time.
And I would say too, So funny. I really don't need this, do I? I have such a loud voice. I would say too, as she said, own your age. As I said, I admit it. I'm 53. I will admit it night and day. I learned it from my mom. She's always admitted her age. This is 53. This is what it looks like. I don't want to be 43. I don't want to be 33. And I certainly don't want to be 23 when I was partying my butt off in college. So I would say that we have got to start owning who we are and owning this age and realize that 46 is the new 46, and whatever age or level you're at, that is the new. There's no such thing as, again, 43 is the new 43 or 40 is the new 30. What does that mean? Do you really want to turn back the time? I mean, oh, whoops. Okay, some people do. Okay, I do like the honesty. But I would just say, let's just be honest with ourselves and also stop criticizing other people online or in person or with your girlfriends. Stop again using the old word. We like to say, how young are you versus how old is someone, or what's your level. I'm level 50. Every time I turn a new age, I'm leveling up. That's what's happening. I'm leveling up. So I would say, yeah, internally, just start owning it. And I know it's hard because we're Gen Xers, and this is a whole new dynamic for all of us. But we are not our grandmother's 50-something-year-olds. We are not our grandmother's 40-something-year-olds. We dress hip, we look hip, we're like hiking 14ers. We're listening to hip hop and R&B. We're consuming tech, we're consuming new and old media, sometimes at the same time. So it's just recognizing really who you are and owning it.
Those are great answers. Let's take a minute. I know the two of you have some very exciting stuff coming up. Let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about some of these fun things coming up that the two of you are going to be participating in.
Well, Kathy Holmes is here, so we just got invited to be a part of a really exciting new women's organization, Women's Entrepreneurship Council, which is a part of Downtown Denver Partnership. We're so thrilled that we were asked to be a part of that within the last, honestly, 2020 has been really exciting. So she has invited us to be a part of this. We also, she's on the board of Downtown Denver Park. Yes.
I got a quick shout out.
Shout out.
Downtown Denver Partnership does some just amazing stuff.
Right.
For those of you that don't know, that's where Denver Startup Week comes from. Denver Startup Week is a child of Downtown Denver Partnership. So good stuff. You guys do wonderful things.
Absolutely. We will be applying again for Denver Startup Week, so we want a slot for those of you that didn't know last fall, and it was on my vision board to be a part of Denver Startup Week and literally have a panel or something, and we want a slot. We became a popular panel, which was really exciting, and filled the room at Capital One Cafe. It was so hot, and a lot of us are going through, so it was like, oh my gosh, woo! I needed, to do this. But anyway, but what's really exciting is that I'm a vision boarder and a strategist and all that and goal setter. So we have won a slot. We applied and we won a slot at South by Southwest.
And for the people that don't know, what is South by Southwest?
So South by West is an amazing global conference. Film. It actually started as a music festival in the 90s. It then transformed into something bigger and badder and crazier, not crazy, but bigger than ever. And so people from around the world go to Austin. South by Southwest happens in Austin, Texas. And basically this conference takes over the city. So big, like the Gagas of the world, like big people go to this, and also regular people like us. But it's a music festival, connection, community, tech. It's turned into this melting pot of all things life and business in a sense. So we are leading a meetup session at the Fairmont Hotel March 15th, and we have women that have actually said they're going to go with us and show the power of us. And interesting enough, at first we were the only ones with a panel, or I'm sorry, with any type of event that was focused on the women over 40 and 50, and we notice now there's a couple more that have that have come on board that have big panels that we're going to go to because we're all about supporting y'all, for sure. So we got that.
That's amazing. That's very exciting.
We've gotten invited to be a part of something really special that we can't necessarily announce what it is, that the city of Denver, under the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Department, which, by the way, if you are a startup, and most of you are, I highly recommend you getting involved or going online to the comments on Champa. They have a plethora of resources and things to help you level up. And Michael Beavis is, we just love this man who's leading that organization, or leading that department for the city. And so, and there's more, I'll let you share more.
Where to go. We launched our Insiders Club, which is fantastic. So we now have formalized our community online to support our women. We're going to be doing a lot. I mean, good gracious, where else to go between
We've gotten
that
on the
and
front page of Denver Post.
we're going to Oprah.
We're
We're going to Oprah.
special.
Yes.
Tell them we're going to do something special to win a ticket.
So we were very fortunate to partner up with an amazing organization called Be Good to People. It's a nonprofit that's really centered in helping to promote being nice to people. Wow, what a concept, right? Like, more of us should do this. More of us should do this. But we are basically partnering up to launch an all-out search here in Denver, but potentially nationally, to find and identify amazing second act women. So you can nominate an amazing woman in her 40s, 50s who's out there crushing it, doing good for the community. And what's that? Well, hold on. Oh. And so then, don't be jumping ahead, sister. And so what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be giving away tickets to these deserving women. So stay tuned, jump on our newsletter, be part of that community and conversation. So if you know of second act women in the communities that you serve and work in, please nominate them. And it's going to be just a fun day to kind of go out and recognize the amazingness of this women. We're also going to be hosting our third, kind of crazy to think already. Biz LifeCon in June, and we'll be launching another one in November, but that is basically the nation's first business and lifestyle conference for women over 40 and 50. So if you have not gone, or if you've not joined us, please do so. But man, a lot of awesome things that we've created, but also our community is asking. So if there are other ways that we can serve you, please let us know, because we're all ears, because that's what we're all about, is here to serve and support you all.
And what's really wonderful too is people like Andrea and some others, Arazu, and other women and men, because we discovered our women don't mind being taught, by men, women X, trans, LGBTQ. It really doesn't matter, because we just have a thirst to learn. So a lot of what we're doing is the workshops and sessions and panels are actually going to be led by our own community, experts in their own fields. So we're excited that, Andrea is going to be talking about, Andrea, I forgot, that's right. See, I keep doing that. Is going to be leading some things on branding. And so we are now, again, we started this, but it's really our community. We're just the ones that created a business around helping other women and eventually helping other men.
Sure.
And creating Women's Business Week in 2021, the original idea. And just continuing on, we've got a mobile app, thanks to Amanda with Appet Ventures, another woman who's lending a hand to us. And we're launching that sometime this year. That will be open to everyone, and a special portal for the members, of course. So there's a lot on our plate.
Right.
I just need a bed on second floor in our office. That's what's happening. We've got showers here and everything.
It's true. So I have 3 questions. I'm going to fire them off fast because I want to let the audience ask questions.
Yes.
Something you sort of touched on, and we've had some conversations about. What about the men that are in the, at that age area? And because we're seeing maybe different, but we're certainly seeing ageism. We're seeing discrimination against men once they hit a certain age. What would you say to them, and what are your thoughts around that? And is there a community? Is there a place for them that like what you guys are doing on the women's side?
So right now, we're not aware of a community, but I can tell you it's something that we're thinking about for the future, and partnering up with, perhaps people like you and others, that can help us launch something for men too. Right now, we're really focused on us because we're
Sure.
the double minority, but still, that's a great question because men are going through it too. And as I describe to some of my male friends, this organization, first question though is really funny is what's your revenue model, which is really funny because we do have one. We're business women. But the other part is a lot of men say that they're going through the same thing, which was a surprise to us because we thought, really it was mostly us. So men are going through it, and we say, heed some of the advice that we're giving tonight. Skill up. And this is advice for you ladies too that are looking to, level up. I mean, really just if there's something you don't know now that you want to learn or you know a little bit about, get on LinkedIn Learning, which you can learn a lot on LinkedIn Learning for free, by the way, because we know that Skillshare and Coursera and some of those others will charge you, and they're wonderful. So it's nothing bad.
I'm going to jump to the next one.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to give this one to Lupe, though.
I'll keep going.
Talk to me about something, a word you threw out earlier, strategy. So we see what you guys are doing. There's a lot of exciting things happening. You're building this community. You're going on a national tour, if you will. But what is the strategy? What is the direction? What do you want this thing to look like a year from now, a year and a half from now, 2 years from now?
My apologies. How dare! I know, right? We would love for the ageist conversation to be front and center, both in mainstream culture, but also on the corporation side. I want people talking about what it means to age in America specifically, and I want to start conversations about, let's have real candid conversations about how we need to change this. We need to change this idea that you hit a certain age and you're no longer adding value.
Right.
I want to talk about the fact that retirement is not at 65. We're still alive in let's talk about the realities of just restructuring the whole way that we look at aging in America and how that be a conversation that we are stepping into, we are owning, and we are redefining together.
And then this one's for both of you. What would you tell women, men, any age, whatever, who are currently working for a company, or maybe they're not working, but they're aspiring entrepreneurs. They want to one day do their own thing.
I got the mic, girl. Hold on.
What would your advice be? Sorry. What would your advice be to them? Whether it be, is there a time to do it? Is there an idea that you have to have? I mean, what does it take to make that move?
So my advice would be, first and foremost, listen to your heart. Your heart does not steer you wrong. We all enter professions, and we all walk away with knowledge that we gain from those professions. But if your heart is telling you to do something else, if it's calling you to do something else, look into it. There's nothing wrong with living life curiously. So explore the options. Surround yourself with people, knowledge, ideas, learning, like the LinkedIn Learning. If there's something that's kind of been in the back of your mind and you've never really fully stepped into it, there's always opportunity. It's never too late, given the fact that, what is it? At 40 plus, most of our entrepreneurs is when we're having the most success starting our companies. So step into it, learn a little bit more about it, and then make an educated decision on what you want to do.
So I would say you need a business plan, because I'm all about a business plan. If you don't have a business plan, ladies, you need one, even if it's a 1 or 2 pager. But first, take a step back. So I'm all about the gut. So I say go with the gut. Your intuition will always guide you. The thing is, at our age, we're scared. So it's really hard for us to jump over fear because we're standing in the fear of what if it's not going to work? What if, I don't get the income I deserve? And we devalue ourselves and, all these different things. So I say when it's time and your gut keeps resonating with you, and finally it's like this, it's like a knock at the door, finally, because you've put it out there and now all of a sudden people are talking about this thing that you want to do or saying, you know what, you should just do it. that's when it's time to press the play button. That's what happened to me. Once I gave up wanting to go back, I realized that this thing, because in actuality, I had been wanting to do educational events for women in business, for business women, for 5 years. And it sat on a shelf, y'all, for 5 years. And it wasn't until I started vocalizing it, putting it on my vision board, putting it in goals, all these things, that finally it was time. And the Lord said, for me, and my friends that really know me said, girl, just do it. This is your thing. You love to connect people, do it. So listen to your gut, but then you got to take that and do the business side of things. So then you got to do the research. So definitely get out there and do the research, much like what we did, to find out how we can make our company different. Because a lot of times you all will be in the same industry, but you got to find your niche. So whatever it is, when you do push play or you do jump over fear finally, make sure that you're also doing the research to make sure to make yourself different, and you have that unique value position. That's very important. But again, please craft a plan. Don't just have a shotgun approach. You will not win. You will not win without having a strategy. And if you do, it's by luck, and you don't want to do anything just by happenstance.
Right. All right, I'm going to open it up for questions. I'll make sure at the end we give you a minute for the LinkedIn thing too. But who has a question? Back there.
Oh, do you want to stand up so we can see his? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready. I wanted to ask, do you think that all of this ageism or all that talk, it is becoming prominent because of the technology, the way business has been working? I ask this because my mom is a doctor back in India, and in their field, the senior you are, like the more respect or you get more priority.
They sure do. We learned that from a gentleman who works here, Ani, who was originally from India. They sure do value the women over 40 and 50. And by the way, ageism, shockingly enough, starts at 35. Isn't that something? Starts at 35 because of tech and because of things that, again, it's just this perception that we don't know. And some of us don't, but those some of us are also a lot of times willing to do the work, do the homework, to get those skills. And I forgot, I'm going to repeat. I'll start repeating the question, especially for the lives. I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
Well, no, I mean, I think to your point, I think certain cultures have reverence for people that have skills and advanced time on the job. I think in American culture, we don't necessarily see that as a value because of the way that I think for generations we've passed down this idea that you hit a certain age and you're going to then be, you're off. And, you're done kind of raising kids. Also, too, lifespan several, decades ago was a lot shorter than what it is today. So I think that, in combination with the fact that we don't necessarily see, older people as other cultures do, as elders, as respected individuals to some degree, I think also we challenge, we need to start challenging that just generationally passed down mentality of you get a certain age and you should be no longer contributing or you're no longer of value. And I think that sadly is a very much of an American kind of idea that we need. That's why we're here to kind of start to buck that thought.
Who else?
So I have a question and a comment. I love everything you're doing, training, awareness. I'm in an HR compliance organization. I was at a huge corporation prior to that for 21 years. Do a lot of things with D&I, affirmative action, pay equity. And I think I personally would be remiss to not thank the men that have helped elevate me in my space.
That's right.
So I know Doug touched on this a few times, and I think it's obviously important you're working with men as part of this and developing women. And my master's program, you spoke to a lot of the statistics that I put within that women are the biggest spenders, and yet it's the men within corporations that are elevating women. So first of all, thank you to all the men for that. And
Yes.
we need more women to be that same way, whatever that is, and less competition. And I think just generationally, we all felt we had to compete with each other as women.
Yeah.
We had to look like men. We're dressed like men, and now we're
Yes.
starting
Well, it's interesting because you're right. We're talking about men supporting women. And that's a thing that we found. People like Doug, and I'm not just saying it because we're sitting on the stage, a part of his group. Literally, he and Michael Beavis and Brian and Ani and Phil back there. I can go on and Rob Brown. Do you know I had a male actually back me and push me out of the nest to say, you're doing this? Because I actually held back. And then, so yes, that's why we're not age bashing and we're not into male bashing. First, I'm trying to find a date. No, I'm just joking. But in all seriousness, yes, you're right. It takes all of us. And because men, sadly, right now are dominating, it takes them to understand our value and realize, who we are.
Real quickly, something to your point, Barbara. My wife had a boss several years ago who was a woman, and she was the owner of the company, and she literally would tell other women in the company, in order to move up, in order to do well, you need to act like a man. And it was crazy because she was excited about working for this woman-owned company, and it was I don't even know what terminology to use, but it is interesting because I think sometimes you almost get like this reverse piece that happens because the sense that I have to make sure I'm doing this so I'm looked at this way, and I think the two of you are making wonderful points about be who you are.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, authenticity, whether it's age, your ethnicity, your beliefs, like bring your whole self to work. Like, don't compromise. Don't try to be a man. Because that's when you will not bring your best. If we're trying to be somebody else, then you're not showing up 100%. And that right there already puts you behind the 8 ball. And you'll never really kind of step into your whole self or what you're meant to contribute if you're always trying to be something that you're not.
And I learned, okay, I'm gonna come back on something that I said at Biz LifeCon that I got. I know some women wanted to boo me, which is okay because I have thick skin now and I love constructive criticism. So I had said, and ladies, you shouldn't cry in business. I literally said that, right? And do you know what I did 2 weeks ago in front of Michael Beavis? I cried, and I said, I know I did, and I said. I am so sorry, I don't cry in business. And he goes, no, you should. It's your passion. It's okay. It's okay to show emotion when it's your passion.
There's
and that was like
just
an
no crying in
eye-opening-
baseball, I think. Isn't that what
Yeah,
it
there
is?
was. Yeah, I was my own Tom Hanks. So I agree. I was that tough alpha female that would, not show that, and
Okay, time for one
I
more.
think ours. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Mine was just you had mentioned LinkedIn and that you were going to tell
I'm going to show you that. at
Yeah,
the end.
we're gonna do that, and then
So I just,
you over here. I'll let both of you get one in.
Yay, let's get that one. Yay, see that sisterhood. Arazu.
so, yeah. So, this is great, but when you look at the stats in terms of economic power, economic advancement, I should say, of women over 40 versus men over 40, it's frightening. So what you see, and this isn't, I did research on this, this is from Census and Catalyst, women over 40, their salaries plateaus. So it grows and it grows and it grows and it gets to 40, and then it stagnates. Men, that happens at 65. And so, okay, so what does this mean? I mean, this is great, but at the state level and federal level, there needs to be some legislation in terms of really integrating women over 40 and ensuring that the age gap, minimizes between them and their male peers. My question to the two of you is this. In your plan, in the next 5 years, have you thought about working at the state level or federal level to try to drive change from a legislative perspective?
So that would be something that we would love to see. I think the game plan for us right now is to obviously establish the community, show through our numbers and through the programs that we're launching within our community, the fact that there's something here. It's interesting that when we first launched this, people didn't really kind of even connect the dots that we could create a community for women over 40 and 50. Like, they were a little befuddled by the idea that, A, we were the first to, in the nation to create this type of conference, and then B, they're like, what, a community for me? Like, I don't understand.
We couldn't sell tickets to our first event, basically.
So right now, I think we are in an education phase and in a rallying phase where we're like, okay, ladies, like, let's all get in line. Like, let's all step together and organize so that we become that voice that people cannot ignore. So in 5 years, will we be at a point where we can affect, corporation D&I standards, where we can, rally, legislation? Absolutely. Like, why wouldn't we? I think at the point, though, right now where we are, and I don't know how long that ramp-up phase will be, is we need to lay the foundation and make sure that it's rock solid, make sure that we have our women rallying behind us, that they understand the value that they bring to the table, and then start to educate, one company at a time, to then get to the point where we can create mass change through legislation. But that would be the goal, right? Our goal, we always talk about, our exit plan is when ageism doesn't exist anymore. Then we could be out of business, and hey, we're all for it. But until then, it's chipping at, a generationally, like multi-generationally passed down way of thinking that needs to change, and we're at the forefront of trying to do that.
And Arazu, you'll be a part of helping us. Because we are forming an advisory board. That's another thing we're doing. Later this year, we will be doing an advisory board. We're also going to kick off a mastermind session to actually start re-scripting and work towards figuring out what we can do on a national level, not just locally and even potentially globally. So yes, your point about state legislation is a good one. And we had a conversation with Michelle Fry not long ago, so thank you for that.
And then one more.
I apologize. I'm a big fan of note-taking, so I put my question out here. I really respect and appreciate your direction to change the conversation to address ageism head-on. But I'm wondering if you think that the next transition is, and the most helpful thing would be in the future to just remove age from the conversation altogether. My dad was an executive in a huge global company, and the first thing he told me when I entered the workplace was to never reference somebody as young or old, but to talk about their professional experience. And so I'm wondering, like, what would happen if corporate America shifted the conversation and focused on a discussion about professional experience instead? And as we age, we have this professional experience which quite frankly cannot be replaced by people entering into the workplace. Those are hard skills, but those are also soft skills like communication and sympathy and empathy. And so I'm wondering if that's where you see the movement heading. Like, we address ageism first, but then we say ageism doesn't matter. Like, our age is just a number.
Yes, so your question was, to sum it up, eventually the discussion about age or any number will go away. Yes, absolutely. That is our exit strategy, as she said. That's the hope. First, as Lupe said, we have to lay the groundwork. And because Gen X has been left behind, we first have to get us in the workplace in order to even out the workplace. And then moving forward, which is years from now, we understand. Then moving forward, yes, it would be great to be able to just talk about ourselves in other ways other than our number, because that's all it is. So absolutely, and that was a really great question.
Barbara, Lupe, I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to do your LinkedIn thing. The stage is yours. I'm even going to step away for a second.
So,
If I can disconnect
first,
myself.
I'm on Facebook Live, so what I'm going to have to do is grab my phone, but grab your cell phones. I'm going to end this broadcast. Bye, Mom. Bye, everyone. So you're going to open up your LinkedIn. And so darn cool. And yes, I said cool, like I'm from 1985.
Do you want this or
Yes. So, oh, that's okay. I'll just make it quick. All right. And if you're on LinkedIn, you could do the same. So what you're going to do is open up your LinkedIn. You're going to go to My Network. Do you see My Network? Tap that. Tap the blue head in the lower right-hand corner. Now tap the very bottom where it says Find Nearby. It may say off. You're going to enable it. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to find everybody in this room is going to populate on here. And you will now connect with everybody in the room that you wish to. You'll see their title. You'll see who they are.
And they say we're not tech savvy, right?
Right? Gen X and Boomers showing how it's done. If you didn't know, we do want to say thank you to Microsoft. They do own LinkedIn, and they've been a strong supporter of ours, as has Macy's, Citywide Banks, and others, and Doug with Startup Grind. So we just want to give a shout out to those corporations that have stuck with us from the very beginning, including Colorado Biz Magazine. So thank you for this opportunity.
And let's you have everyone distracted, Barbara. Let's give a big hand for our speakers tonight. They were awesome.